welcome back to Contact. Today, hopefully we're finishing this thing. I've done some sciencing, and I have come to a unfortunate discovery. So if we look at our control panel here, and I find the large thrusters, there you are. So one large thruster requires 33.6 megawatts of power at full burn. The 4 reactors we have on board each produce 15 megawatts. So pretty much 2 reactors, the 4 reactors can only do like 1.5 thrusters of power, which is not good for our goal. The batteries do help a bit, but all the power so far on board this thing, I could only have 3 thrusters firing at once. Which means these 4 thrusters in the back, plus the 8 more that were going to be here with the pylons, not gonna work. So, I've done some more looking, and I've kind of... As much as I like the front of this thing, it's a weird stubby box shape-wise. So I've been kind of looking at this, overall profile, and I think I have some ideas to improve a couple things on it and to fix my thrust issue without without way over drawing my power. Now, I could theoretically go in and add more power. I might be able to fit a large reactor. In fact, actually, I'm just curious. How much does a large reactor produce? I think it'll tell me without having to build it. 300 megawatts. I'm curious. Right, they're 3x3x3. So that's 9. So that's 27 small reactors. We've exceeded my mental mathing. Interesting. So the same amount, the same density of small grid reactors produces 405 megawatts. So there's actually a slight efficiency drop. Now, I don't know the burn rate of uranium in the large versus small reactors. So that may balance it back to the way that makes sense. But in terms of raw power output, you are better to have 27 small reactors sprinkled throughout your ship as opposed to one big one. So maybe I do plan some auxiliary reactors distributed, but I also... this thing was going to have way too much thrust. I think my plan will make it look better and still operate as it needs to. And as I'm looking around at colors and things, I should note I've done a bit of back-end video stuff, so I currently have some color correction that I didn't have before. I may have in the past had some of it, and then it got lost with various equipment upgrades and changes, but I now have some correction to hopefully have the game look a little less washed out. I don't know if it'll look good, but if you've noticed a slight color variation, it's not your eyeballs failing you.
Inventory full.
Annoyingly, I got these pipes going back here for some rear turrets that I now need to remove entirely. They took a while to build. That's one of the biggest challenges. Oops, right. One of the biggest challenges in survival ship design in my mind is getting something. You need to have it welded up enough and built up enough so that you can get a sense of if it's what you want. But that then means that you've put a lot of time and effort into something that may need to change. It just... that conveyor was not correct. Yeah, just one of the slight challenges, and you could get around this. And I thought about doing this for this ship, designing it in creative mode and then building a projector and just projecting it, which could have been the better way to go. Would have been different. I don't know, I enjoy a little bit of this, having to actually plan out, you know, it adds a bit of challenge doing it for real. And I feel like makes for a slightly more unique ship. Okay, so the gist of back here, part of what I realized is if I'm not filling this with thrusters, it's a bunch of wasted space. So we'll just get rid of it. My plan is to fade this line back into here as best as I can. Potentially getting rid of some of this area if I have to. We'll see how it looks. And then having essentially 2 thruster pods, one on each side, that come off from here, come out to where the end of the thrusters are about in line with that front wing bit, maybe one step out. And then I've got sort of negative space in between where the thrusters will be here, body of the ship is here, some pylons, probably with a little pass-through area so I can get in and repair the turrets. So let's see how that will look. Okay, this actually may work out pretty well. So, excuse me, pillar. So that just slopes straight back into that. That leaves us this area, this little 2x3 eventually area, with this being the wall. It's kind of just a matter of how well this stuff slopes in. Because there's not a good way to smoothly do this. This block is sort of, well,
Energy low.
let's see what happens. It feels like this one's a little too jittery. Oh yeah, because the connection point, you have that, so you get these weird little bumps, which is not going to be what I want. So I'll pull out this end bump that we did, because I don't think it'll help us. And then I may see if I can just basically convert here from a 2x1 to a 1x1. See if that looks good. Sort of. Well, it'll make more sense once it's done. Yeah. Actually. Fairly simple lines. So making use of the sort of janky pieces, we're able to go smoothly down, transition into the, you know, long cornery bits. And then those I can simply fade into the hole. And it almost works out. I think this will be less of a, and less of a control area and more of just a platform you walk out on, but it's where everything lines up. And I could still have like a little console here and a standy thing. Now, getting conveyoring through. Actually, probably won't be the worst thing in the world. Though I do want to figure out one issue that this design causes is I lose my airlock. Could try something a little wacky here. Yeah, this could work. So I basically build a little tube under here. If I build it down here too. So if I set this up with some pipes, I can have a piston here. Basically mimic what I have on the Baby Beluga with its little extendo arms. Because part of the issue with the airlock, I've realized this as well with my other airlock design, the wings are wide. So if I want to be able to, you know, come up and connect to this connector, I have to make sure that I'm far enough away that I have room for my wing not to whack through the glass. So this should make that work. I still get to do my cool connector piston-y thing. I don't know, it'll break up the shape a little bit. That's got us pretty good. Let's real quick. Yeah, this will probably be the best way to do this. I want to make sure I have pipes that run back into here. And I may even disconnect this block completely. That was not an intentional effect. Bam. So, we have conveyoring. I can actually do this real quick too. So I've got my conveyor tube running across there. It then comes back out here, goes up a level. So I can then run it this way and run it through this wall. Probably back down again, which is silly, but I want it to, you know, when I come out here, I don't want to feel like I'm crushed under a pipe with a ton of room above the pipe. Replace this one with another T. That way I can have my airlock vent above right there. This is an airlock actually as well. So we can do that, and I can have this awkwardly in there. It's not the the best use of material in space, but it'll get the job done. So the reason I'm piping the sort of pillar that leads out to the thrusters, I want these to have auto repair. So some welders behind them, similar to the turrets up there. That way, you know, I can keep them built if I'm being shot at. Now, I think the best way to do that might be to just kind of have a shape like that to start with. I don't know how these are being laid out. Okay, maybe I do the other support and build off of it and connect this line to where it needs to go. If I start with my sideways thruster there, yeah, I think that's maybe only a half block wider than up here. It's hard to tell. We'll go with that there. Then I want downward facing. and upward facing. And then hopefully all these are going into the right spots, because it's really hard to tell when you're this close to them.
Energy critical.
But yeah, that looks about right. So that would be our thruster pod, which will then have various bits kind of, yeah, it'll be armored up to look a little better. Though maybe I adjusted a bit. There is going to be a lot of fiddling back and forth with getting things exactly feeling good. Yeah, that looks good, I think. Maybe how I do this is gonna get a little weird. So if I have my 2 conveyor lines there and there, with our pipes going across, I'm probably not gonna have a way to walk in here. But it should be mostly exposed from the outside anyway. And if I have, you know, inbuilt repair systems, that should let me... Ideally, I don't ever have to go over here because it repairs itself. Alright. So now, I just do welder and welder, welder, and welder. So that welder will get the front one. That one should get this and the middle. This one gets the middle and this one, and the back one there. So in the end, I will have basically 2 large ion thrusters in every direction except sideways. Now you can sacrifice one direction pretty safely. It'll also lengthen the ship out a bit. It's sort of, I mean, anytime you have nacelles and slight rounding, it starts looking Star Trek-y. It's kind of getting that vibe. I don't know, I may try and change how to shape the nacelle in such a way, and it's always going to look a little bit, but this is what we've got. We're working with it. So I think that's a good design. So this area is pretty exposed. I could work some, maybe just some extra batteries in here. I don't know. I think I'll get this built and then see where I can poke in some extra reactors and batteries just to give us a little bit more oomph. But worst case, just on reactor power, we should be able to operate, like, if we're just pushing forward, we can do that. If we're just pushing backwards, we can do that. If we have to, you know, if we're pushing forward and start nosing up so that the lifting thrusters fire, then we may run out of power, but we should be able to bolster that without much issue. Well, that's a good bit of progress. So, how do I get in down here? Got a few things. I guess I can go a little bit of an overview, and, you know, it's not perfectly finished yet. But piping is all installed. We've got airlock here. Going back to this area. Piping's all built. If we go in, well, we'll go over here. I realized I have, the hallway here, and around that side is in the front of engineering. But I could also have a way into the back. Back here makes sense. Oh, that was one thing I wanted. So in finishing stuff off, I sort of left areas that would work well for reactors. So we can do... Maybe we do it... Yeah. I like that. So I can access it directly. But I have 2 reactors here. And I actually, I don't get stuck on the cargo container, I left some space in here running some piping for the airlocks. So I have some areas here for other reactors. So that's basically doubled the amount of onboard reactors in, ways that are still kind of convenient in the engineering and, fitting to the ship design. So not too much else. I finished the floor down here, which is good. Oh, and I did. So before there was an airlock on each side, I realized this area with the little suits, this makes sense for an airlock out to the back. But I could rework the bathroom area. So now we have, it's basically, you have a little walk-in bit. And those doors don't work for that bathroom. Good to know. I'm gonna have to sit on the toilet to get my energy back. Okay, anyway, so we have 2 sort of bathroom stalls. Go in here and, do your business. And then we have 2 shower stalls where these doors do work. So the half have a little, I guess, second sink for brushing teeth, shower. It's not critical, but it's a good little touch to have. So not much else is different. Out this airlock. I've started doing some armor design on this thrust nacelle. I do think if we look at it from above, it's still a little bit weird looking. It definitely looks like it's too short, but I do think having the whole thing narrow down, then the blank space helps. I have also set thrusters to be produced, so it looks like it's got through everything except for the thruster components, which makes sense. Let's say 1,300 platinum ingots. How much platinum do I have? I'm refining nickel. I have worked through all of my ore except for the nickel, so that's pretty good. Okay, I do not have enough platinum. So I am gonna have to go and gather some of that. Maybe I do that first before I detail up here. This isn't the next sort of step. Because that way it'll be refining as I go. And I did just have the thought. I have a full load of platinum. I should have probably checked if I needed anything else. Because I think I think thruster components need gold and silver potentially. At the very least, they need gold. I remember that because I've been screwed over by that requirement in the past. Alright. So I'll chew through that stone real quick and then get onto the platinum. Don't know if I've ever actually said this, in a video out loud before. The way you sort of manage ore order. So the industrial refinery, now this gets complex if you have multiple cargo containers and all this and that. But if you have one cargo container with all your ores in it, one refinery, I guess it would work with multiple refineries. Basically, the refineries pull from the cargo container, sort of going along like this. So if it's looking for ore to pull, it'll sort of slide along, and the first ore it comes to, so in this case the first ore is stone, that is what it sees first, so that's what it processes first. Now I could drag some platinum in there and it'll run the platinum, but once it finishes that platinum, it will go back to whatever's first in line. So the easiest way to sort of organize this stuff is you basically just put it in order, going along the rows like a reading, have your order, the ores you want in the order you want them, and then it should sort of manage itself. So up here, I think what I'm gonna do, so I've left these areas open for windows, because I'd like some windows on the ship. Oh, I could have windows where the bedrooms are. I may add those in. But I have these gaps. The main thing I have planned for up here is that I want a medbay. Yeah, I think I'll orient it like so. So with a medical bay up here, that gives me my onboard respawn. This area... Trying to think how best to do this. So if I go along like this... This is the roof of the... Yeah, in here. We do have that. I'm trying to think if I would be better off pushing this back a block. Sort of prefer it right there for the weaponry. So my thought process here, I have this area as a medical bay. I want in here to be sort of the galley area. But I also want... I don't want this stair to be useless. I could do this. Hold on. Because this is just sort of dead space up here. If I use my sort of upside down passageways, now I have a convenient walk through. That means I can have the wall come basically all the way out to here. Go that corner like so. I could even, since I have so much space, I can just do that. So that's a nice big galley with some windows in it. We have a hallway that has windows on the other side, access to the medical area. I could cut this off and basically have this little area be like a... It'll probably just be like the indent where the kitchen would be. Now, question is, do I want windows up here in the med bay looking back into the cargo? And I kind of do. Because who doesn't like big walls of windows? I think I'll do them with these half windows. Because I want... Yeah, I want to be able to easily access this. But still feel like there's some bulk here. I may... Ow.
Your health is critical.
I've done that a lot on this ship. It's just big enough that I can accelerate up to dangerous speeds before hitting a wall. In fact, I should preface that most of what I've done on the ship is actually dying and not just wounding myself. Which in some ways is easier, because I don't have to come back in here. I just appear here. Anyway, what I was saying, I don't think I even did this on anything. I realized this stairwell, because I pushed this wall back to be butting up with the cargo container, it made this stair really awkward. Now, I could just have a platform and come back. Actually, that would be better, maybe. Yeah, no, because I can put windows here. Changing my mind again. Have the window down here. Have a window on the other side. I can have a little, like, some consoles here to be, you know, security stuff. And then my stairs leading up. And while I'm at it, put in the window bit up here. Which may... Oh no, I actually feel like this would be served better by a just sheet glass window. Be able to really see into the stylized whatnots. And speaking of windows, this is still a combat vessel, so I want, you know, security in my windows. So I'll have the angles with these slats. And then I'll put panes back here. I could potentially even use these again. We'll go with this, we'll weld it up, we'll see how it looks. So then for our actual kitchen, let's do... Yeah. Nice serving counter here. Back here we have room for the full sort of double kitchen deal. So that'll look good. Then out here we need some tables. This is more tables than we would have crew on board. And last thing, I always like having some self-serve drink machine. Yeah, ooh, hold on. I realized something. I used that style of using this passageway upside down in the airlock because I had the vent above. But we have these corridors. They would actually work much better in here. Partially, if I get to it. Come on, where are you? There we are. I think I was on it before. We have these corridors with lights in them. And I can just walk that all the way back. So you go from this side, when gravity exists, you'll go straight into a corridor. Corridors have lights, so I don't have to worry about it being dark. And it means up here, I can have a fish tank just sticking in the wall. And it completely useless, but adds a little bit of detail and interest. Now we do just a lab there, and I like having these little medical CAT scan bed things, but don't really have a good spot for it, so we won't worry about it. So we've got our med bay.
Energy low.
We've got a nice sort of access way to the galley. And look outside. Let's go down. I'm gonna see what windows in the bedrooms will look like. It will be kind of awkward because the beds are, they sort of narrow in and then it would open out. Oh, and that's a little awkward. It's not actually going to cause any issue, but I don't like having, I like covering these sorts of things when I can. I don't think this will do perfect, but if I have that butt up right there, it doesn't make the room feel too horribly awkward. You do end up with the thing where your window is very clearly, you know, recessed into a tunnel, but I don't think that's the worst thing. Then the slats. Yeah, maybe that'll work. So I'm thinking we ran out of cobalt, which we also need for thruster components. Yep, out of cobalt. Let's just real quick. So I need a tick over 3,000 gold. Don't have enough of that. Don't have enough cobalt. I have 154 iron, and I only need 90, so we have enough iron. Just because I want to say it's done. I'll go ahead and get all this stuff built, and then I guess I go on a bunch of mining trips. And of course, I need some bits I don't have for some of this. We're getting close. Ow. That's what I said about the easiness of dying. During some of this back and forth building, I do wish that I'd connected this to cargo from the get-go. Because unfortunately, I have the systems now to do it, but I can't move the ship. I guess I could try and tug it with some other ship, but I don't know, that's a lot of risk for what realistically only helps slightly because I still have to have cargo access places. Which I didn't really, you know, I don't have cargo access in each bedroom. Yeah, I think those windows work. They're a little awkward with the, you know, you'd expect them to cut off at the edge of the bed, but from most angles, it's like, yeah, you know, you're looking out, you can, like, just glancing in, you don't really notice the weird edge, and it just feels like a window. Yeah, I think that, I like it well enough. So I did this at the back. Sort of going for Tinnicly vibe. Again, it makes this feel like these were sheared off and it's only half the nacelle. It's a little weird looking, but I think there may be just enough detail at the back to make this make more sense. And my goal is to give it, I don't know, I guess I'm almost going for a insectoid vibe. This gives us a little bit of an extension to the back without being particularly, you know, difficult or bulky. The sun is annoyingly in the exact wrong position at the moment. But yeah, I think that does the job suitably well enough. Now I have to copy it onto here. Which I may have a cheeky little idea about. If I look at this and do Control Shift Blueprint, that should just be a blueprint of the ship. So now I smack this connector on. I'd like it to go dead center, but it's not gonna work, so we'll just go right here. If I add that grid to there, yep, we've got the ship. I can now, so basically what I'm gonna do is flip the projection, line it up more or less with the ship, then flip it 180 degrees so that this armor casing appears around the thrust nacelle. And it should work because that's center line, and even if it doesn't, I can just position. Now the issue here is going to be seeing what I'm doing. Yeah, so if the catwalk's where I remember it to be, that should be the right orientation. So yep, our armor casing is on the right side of the ship. Now it's just a matter of shifting everything into position. Yeah, I think that's where it needs to be. The only issue is these thrusters, my up and down, are in a different orientation. So this is not perfect. It's, you know, a substitute for mirroring, but it should let me get at least the bulk of this down without having to place it. Now, get myself a bunch of steel. Yeah. The only thing I need to be careful to avoid is looking through the projection and welding up the thruster. Just because that's going to take all the steel in my inventory and then some. Yeah, like I've done. I guess another interesting option. So I have most of the stuff for these built, except for the thruster components. I could solve a bit of my issue here just by connecting cargo up to this, because then I could use the welders. Maybe I just waft around with this thing and hope I don't waste too much steel. This is an interesting way to speed things up, but I will have to be a little careful to avoid accidentally welding things that aren't supposed to be here. Alright. I believe I just get rid of this guy. It's everything welded. Minus a few holes here and there. Also, I want to check. Yeah, so that was not quite right. And that's fine. Eventually have a pipe coming up there and one over there. Yeah, I think that's looking pretty good. Now, I have these little areas, which I thought could be a good spot for some more reactors if I need them, though they aren't particularly accessible. I could have a welder pointing back at a reactor, that way it's safe. I could also put batteries or gyros in there. I may leave those open until I get the thrusters on, that way I can give this thing a proper flight test and see what it needs. I may also want to do something about this upper bit to, I don't know, style it a bit more. It's a little flat and bland. So yeah, I think this may be where I end it for today. I will do a bunch of mining and stuff off camera to finish this thing up, get it stylized and, you know, working. That would probably be the biggest thing to do. Yeah, we'll come back next week and hopefully go after some actual enemies in this thing. So for now, thank you all so much for watching. Feel free to check out any of the other stuff I've done. And until next week, bye-bye.